cohorts. And basically, I have to look at what I'm reading from the Prime Law, which says, you're not a follower. You're a leader. You're an independent person. So when I'm reading this, and I will be honest, I had to read that multiple times because I was in an old mindset and I needed to get out of it. So when I finally got it, and in order for me to get it, I had to realize my own value. And you really have to take this, Michael, sentence by sentence, because you have to really believe that the purpose of human life is to prosper and live happily. And once you understand you've got the opportunity to prosper and live happily, you realize that line says you are in charge of your life. You're in charge of what you need to do to move forward every day. You need a government because there are certain conditions that you do need support with and help with, but you don't need to be ruled by it. So when I read that sentence in my mindset today, as a person who understands the 12 visions, I say I am an independent person who I only need the functions of government to support me in my focus on living the life of prosperity and happiness, because I'm an individual who is a person who could be a leader or a person who is in charge of his life, not to be ruled by others. So that's how I look at it. That I first am a person who is, I am in charge, and then there's a support to me, not a ruling of me. And that's the key. This government supports me, does not rule over me.
Oh, that's beautiful, Steve. Right off the bat, from the first two lines, you have determined that you are in charge of your life, and it's government's job to support you in that role in your life. So that's beautiful. I tell you what, this is a subject that many people do struggle with at first. So I'm going to ask Larry, when you read the function of government is to provide the conditions that let individuals fulfill that purpose, what do you think of right off the bat?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is the Founding Fathers. If you would have asked them this question, they would have agreed most definitely with this statement. Those people at that time, they knew what it was like to live under the rule of a monarch. They knew that was not the way for government to function as a ruling class over the non-ruling class. And that's why they went about writing the Constitution. Now, since they were so close to that rule of man, they left out this defining the function of government as to provide the conditions. They were so close that they knew they wanted to get as far away from that as they could. So they never really defined that in the Constitution. It was always something that everyone knew of that situation, so there was no real reason to write it down in the Constitution. And we've experienced over the last how many years that without having that defined, we've ended up where we are right now. So when I read that, I think, the Founding Fathers, they would jump all over that. They would love that statement, and they would see that's needed to be put in the Constitution somewhere.
Yes, I agree. I totally think they would jump all over that also. So they had the right mentality when they were writing that nearly perfect Constitution. I'll tell you what, Loren, I haven't asked you yet about the Prime Law.
Uh-huh. When I look at that statement again, the function of government is to provide the conditions that let individuals fulfill that purpose. I see that key word as individuals, and I reduce it to individual. And I think that's somehow gotten lost with all these programs for the so-called social good that we have. It goes back to our basic Bill of Rights thing, and for a person to maximize their happiness, the first one, the purpose of human life is to prosper and live happily. I think they need, to have maximum freedom. I mean, they can't be restricted in any way, unless, of course, it infringes on anyone around them. And we've lost that, and we need to get that back. We need to have that. So that's pretty much what it means for me. I could go on and on, but.
Oh, no, thank you. That was great. When I read the function of government is to provide the conditions that let individuals fulfill that purpose, that's the word I see also, Loren, individuals. See, one of the big challenges we face in this country with legislation and just the overall mentality is that there's laws and there's social good for groups of people. And we really put the individual, we don't even put the individual in perspective anymore. And it really is about the individual. And that's what the 12 Visions Party is about. Now, the first two lines in the preamble, the purpose of human life is to prosper and live happily. And the function of government is to provide the conditions that let individuals fulfill that purpose. Those are two very beautiful statements. However, this third line in the preamble is really where the meat of it is, really where it counts. And that is the prime law guarantees those conditions. Remember, the purpose of human life is to prosper and live happily. And the function of government is to provide the conditions that let individuals fulfill that purpose. That's what the prime law guarantees. And it does that by forbidding the use of initiatory force, fraud, or coercion by any person or group against any individual. And I stop there with individual because property and contracts are property of an individual's. So you really need to focus on the individual. Now, I know why property and contract are in there is because some people may think that the prime law only protects people and their bodies. Well, that's not quite right. But anyways, the prime law guarantees those conditions by forbidding the use of initiatory force. Okay? Now, that's another thing that when somebody first reads, they may not quite agree upon or really interpret the same way, is what is initiatory force? And I'm going to go back to Karlton. What is the fundamental essence of initiatory force?
Well, Michael, when I look at that, and I look at the essence of initiatory force, that is where we have come to live by at this point with our government structure, where we are forced to do different things. We are forced with let's look at taxes, for example. Now, our taxes is it's a volunteer basis, and it was set in the beginning as you volunteer. However, let someone voluntarily not pay their taxes, and you have initiatory force being instituted by our government structure to make sure that you abide by those laws that are in place for us. The whole first part that you just went over, the purpose of human life is to prosper and live happily, and the function of government is to provide those conditions that let individuals fulfill that purpose. And the prime law guarantees these conditions by forbidding the use of initiatory force. One of the things that I look at is this is really taking it back to the responsibility of the individual, which it may step on some people's toes because, so many people are so used to having someone govern their life and tell them what to do. And yes, okay, on Monday morning you must get up at this particular time and you must do this particular procedure. And it's because of, we're so conditioned and we're so conditioned by this rule of man. What the prime law does is it removes the rule of man, and it gives us